Welcome. This is all the cool old stuff I found while renovating. Now, some of this stuff isn't too old. These newspapers mostly being from 1979, 1980, 1981. I do have one from 1930, I think one from 1950, and this one here is from 1962. But we do have this newspaper, which is from 1869, so some quite old stuff here. Some of the stuff I can't date very well. For example, I'm not good with shoes, so like this, for example, I I have no idea. Uh, and that's the things that I know what they are. I don't even really know what this is, but we'll get into that later. Uh, we've got this mask, which again, I don't really know what it is or how old it is. I just think it's cool. So we'll move from newest to oldest to really show off what we have here for the newspapers and also keep the best for last, of course. Now, most of these newspapers were being used as floor leveler, except for the really old ones, which were found just in a wall. What's really interesting with the ones that were being used as floor leveler is looking back at the renovation that was done and then seeing the date on the newspaper to be able to say, okay, it was done around that time. It's a really interesting way to be able to date a renovation so accurately. For example, the 1979, 1980s ones were done underneath a floor upstairs, while the 1960s was done in the kitchen. So it was really interesting to look at a renovation and being able to date it pretty accurately just based off the newspapers they use as floor leveler. We have a bunch of shoes, children's shoes as well, which is kind of creepy for me. I didn't really like finding this. We also have a child's glove, which very creepy as well. For me, anyway, finding it in a wall, knowing that that child is probably pretty old by now. And then this shoe here, which is just completely worn out. I mean, it's crazy. Looking through it, I can't imagine why it ended up in a wall. I I I've heard of shoes being in walls before, but I just don't understand why you would do that. And especially for someone to find like years later, I really don't understand. So moving on down the table from the shoes, we have this interesting thing, which I honestly don't know what it is. We've had a couple of like really good guesses. It would work quite well as a hammer, but it's a shaved piece of wood as far as I understand, and it's got metal poured inside. If that's what they did, I honestly don't know because I have no idea what this is. It's quite heavy for what it is. I mean, it's a small little thing, but of course the metal does make it heavy. Now, one thing with an old house is you find a lot of old stuff in it, but you also find a lot of old stuff outside of it. So one of the things that I found outside was actually this mask. And this mask I found in a garden that wasn't even really a garden anymore. It was about 6 inches in the dirt in a flower garden that also had the bricks buried about 6 inches in the dirt. You couldn't even really tell that there was a flower garden there, except for on the edges, I could see that there was bricks, so I decided to follow it along with a shovel and use that shovel to drive it in the ground and like hear if I hit on a brick or not. And then I would dig up the brick. Well, I got curious about the garden itself, so I decided to just go around the garden with my shovel and just drive it in the ground. And I heard a ting off this mask, and I didn't know what to think at first. It was just metal on metal, like you hit a shovel off something that was metal. So I started digging and I dug this up. It is one of the coolest things I've found, and so random. I just couldn't believe it. Like, I know it's probably not that old based on the engravings that are on it, and now it's smoke damage from the fire, unfortunately. It was a lot brighter. This paint was actually very white, but of course now it's quite darkened. To just be looking for bricks in an old flower garden and then come across something like this, I love the history of things, and an old house just has so much history. So I don't know how old this is. I just thought it was really interesting, so I decided to call it one of the cool things that I found. Some other things that I don't quite know what it is or how old it is this. I don't really know what this is or how old it is. I found it in a wall. And as well as this, I don't know what this is either. It's probably broken, if I had to guess. But yeah, there's a lot of things that you find in an old house that you're just not quite sure what it is. I mean, I could take a guess that this is for a thread of some kind, but I don't know that. That's just what I see looking at it. The next thing that's quite interesting is this knife. So this is found in the kitchen, in the attic. Looking at the knife, I was able to date it within a certain number of years, roughly the 1930s, 1950s, which matches up quite well with the dates that were on the newspapers when the renovation's done on the floor in the kitchen. So yeah, I would assume that it's from the 1930s to 50s, 60s. I found quite a lot of old advertisements like this. Coffee. Now that's pretty much everything I found from the 1900s. A lot of newspapers and some advertisements. It's some cool things. But let's move on to stuff that's older than that. So we'll go to the 1800s, and the next newest thing that I have would be this newspaper. Now, finding this newspaper was incredible. I can't believe that the whole edition survived this long in a wall. Now, I love these newspapers. They are fascinating to go through. But what's even more fascinating is something original. And that's what I have here. So, this note is dated 1867 from March. That's before Confederation in Canada, which is incredible that this place existed even before Canada was a real country. The last thing we'll look at on this table is the oldest thing that I found. This coin. I feel bad even touching it. It's from 1794. And I actually found that in between two floorboards. It spent almost its whole life being flattened by the floor. And just to find it like that, I can't believe that it's even got a face on it at all. Being able to make out something on it is very difficult, but you can see it. And it's a bit of a weird coin because it only has one face on it. The other side is just blank.